I didn't realize that. Well, here's what we're keep seeing. Until the demand is lower than the supply, we are going to continue to have prices rise. And by the way, the experts are saying that we're expecting appreciation of somewhere between 3 and 5% per year over the next 5 years. Not what I'm saying, but what the experts are saying.
If the only times that I call you are times when I ask you, who do you know that wants to buy or sell, would you really believe that I have your best interest at heart? Probably not. And so no matter what story I'm telling, you're not believing it. And then I always leave this one for last. This is authenticity.
Right, it looks like we are live on Facebook. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Curtis, one of the LabCoat moderators here, and today we're going to talk to Jordan Weber, and I'm going to serve a dual purpose today. I'm going to be the host and I'm going to be the guest simultaneously, so it'll be an interesting, fun way to do this, and appreciate Jordan having us on today. So zBuyer is a great company that I use in my business, and I know Tristan, we were talking in the green room. Tristan has used it for his team for years. So anyway, without any further ado, I'll have Jordan introduce himself, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, everyone. My name is Jordan Weber. I've been with zBuyer for several years now. I'm the product specialist with the company, so it puts me in a role where I'm able to see, assets of the company from lead generation to how we deliver it to agents, from the homeowner, the home shopper experience, what it's like for them, creating a lead, end up working with a zBuyer member. So I see many different points of it, and it allows me to work with agents all across the country. And kind of the topic of today, if I don't beat you to it, Brian, is, how to convert leads in a changing market. It's something we hear a lot about, especially as of recently. People are, what do I need to do? Do I increase my spend? Do I just stop my spend? Do I stay where I'm at? Do I need to pick up more sources? So I think, Brian, let's go ahead and jump into it.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I see a lot of people talking about shrinkage. Let's come down. Let's make sure that we're not spending. Now, let me say this, as a business owner, I agree with this part of that concept. But here's what I mean by that. You do not want to ever have just a whole bunch of money going out that doesn't have return. So for a lot of people, I think as the market contracted slightly, that was a good opportunity for them to look at where their spend was. But here's a mistake I think people are making. Just because the market is slower, it's not slow. So I want to just offer a little bit of comparison. My market specifically, I can't speak to other markets, although I think we're a typical market throughout the country. If I go back to 2009, which in my opinion was probably 9, 10 was probably the slowest time, we're looking at having 9, 10, 11 months of inventory in my market. If I look today, I haven't looked actually today, but I did look last week, we had about 48 days of inventory. So put that in terms of months, that's 1.5 months versus 10 months. So we're talking about, I'm gonna do math in my head real quick, about 6.5 times more inventory in 2009, 2010 than we have today. What does that mean? That means we're in a seller's market. It doesn't mean we're in a bad market. It doesn't mean we're in a crashing market. We are in a normalizing market. So why would we take all of our spend, all where we're getting our leads, and contract that? In my opinion, that's a mistake. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a whole bunch of people who are going to quit, who have already quit, whether they've technically their license is expired or not. They've quit mentally. So you have an opportunity to grab their market share. So for me, we're actually increasing our spend, and a lot of people looking at me like I'm nuts in there. Now, I'm streamlining. I'm making sure that every part of my business is efficient, but, we're adding more spend. And the biggest problem I'm having right now is I'm trying to find more places to put it. And zBuyer, we are already using them, but it's a great place to put some of that spend. So I would challenge everybody to say, is this a market that I can't be successful in? And the answer is absolutely not. This is a great market. As a matter of fact, for me, it's a lot better. I mean, I don't know about you, Jordan, but I don't like this idea of running around like a chicken with my head cut off 24 hours a day, just responding to everybody who came in. And that's what 2020 and 2021 felt like to me. I enjoy actually being able to differentiate myself.
Absolutely. And so jumping off of that, talking about being able to differentiate yourself, one thing we're hearing of a lot of people doing is, increasing spend, taking on as much as they can right now. People are stepping out, so pick up what they're giving up. But the other thing that's interesting, because 2020, 2021, everyone was so focused on running around, like a chicken with their head cut off. No one was mining their database as much because everyone was just getting fed business. It was being served on a silver platter in many cases. So that's one thing we're doing. People are, telling us, hey, we're looking through our systems, looking through our processes, making sure the content that we're offering is still building value to these homeowners, making sure that's in line. And instead of just waiting for someone to raise their hand, go mine their database and get those people to raise their hand. So what are you doing, or what does that look like in your systems and your processes? Where are you finding business out of leads you already have?
Well, it's really, here's a word that we didn't have to use for 2 years. It's nurture, right? So, it's funny. I feel like if a lead came in 2021 and they said they wanted to buy in 6 months, so I was like, great, we'll call you in 6 months. We literally don't have the time or bandwidth to deal with you right now. Now that flipped on its head. So what we're doing is we're reaching back out. We're going back to that database and having conversations. But to do that, I think it's something that's really important. You have to actually understand scripts, dialogues, market. So the number one thing I feel like agents need to do in 2022 and moving forward in 2023 is to be able to talk about the market. So kind of like I did at the beginning of this webinar, I talked about how there was 10 months of inventory in 2010 and today there's a month and a half. Well, I don't know about you, Jordan, and I know that you're not necessarily actively selling real estate, but you've talked to a lot of real estate agents throughout the country, I'm sure. One of the things that's interesting is contrast, and here's what I mean by that. So if you look at contrast of today versus a year ago, it feels like, and let me just, I put that in quotes because feelings aren't facts. Feelings matter, but they're not facts. It feels like we are in a seller's market for a lot of people. It's not even close. So, in those of you who aren't familiar with the statistic, a seller's market occurs up to 6 months of inventory. So, a balanced market is 6 months. We're 4 times more inventory to even get to a balanced market in the majority of places. Now, I have talked to people there at 3 months. Okay, so that's still double the amount of inventory that you need to get that. So, what is this all about? This is normalizing. It's a great term, by the way, if you're talking to a buyer or seller and they're asking you about this market, say it's normalizing. Don't say it's declining, slowing. Don't say it's normalizing. And that's really what we're doing. So, in a normal market, why do people move? Well, let me do a contrast before I answer that question. In 2020 and 2021, a lot of people moved for what I refer to as opportunity. In other words, when the heck am I ever going to be able to borrow money again at 2.5%, 3%? And the answer is in my lifetime, probably never. There are some of you who may see that again in your lifetime, but you're younger than me. The reality is we're not going to see those kind of interest rates realistically ever again. So, but the contrast really hurts us because people are like, 6.5 is a horrible interest rate. I don't know about you, but my first house I bought was at 8%. My second house I bought was at 7%. My third house I bought was at 6.25. These weren't because I have bad credit. I have good credit. It was because that was the prevailing interest rate. So that was the 90s, that was the 2000s, and even into the early 2010s. And then we went into this crazy world where we're at 3, 4, even 2% interest. And we have to be able to have conversations with our clients, because if your client is waiting for the interest rate to drop to 3% again, they may literally never buy a house.
Absolutely. One thing that I want to focus on is, we're talking about lead generation here, in kind of a broad conversation. But find a company, and we're not the only one out there, but it's going to target people that want to buy or want to sell no matter what the interest rate is.
Right.
We're not finding leads that say, hey, I want to buy and sell, but I want to do it when the interest rate hits 4.2%. We're finding people that say, right now, today, whatever the market is, I need to buy, I need to look at selling. Our sellers specifically are saying they want to see a cash offer in the market value. So they're people that are motivated. There's some type of desire, something behind them, pushing them to need to look into this. So having a lead source, having something that's going to fill your business, bring more people into your pipeline, but they're going to be realistic. is a huge piece.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because what we're down to now, and again, in this normal market, is I moved for a reason. What do I mean by that? My family got bigger, my family got smaller, I got divorced, I got married, eh, I got to move for my job. These people are the people who traditionally have bought a house or sold a house over the last 25 years. And all of you who are relatively new to real estate, take 2021 and 2020, pop it out of your mind. It's not realistic. So I think it's really important for us to be able to understand that. Okay, so we got a question in the chat, Jordan. Why don't we go ahead and deal with that? What if a buyer says housing prices are going down, so I'm going to wait? So, Jordan, you have any thoughts on that? I do. If I'll be happy to share if you want.
Yeah, jump to it. I'm curious to see what you have to say here.
So, I would say this, and a couple of things about sales. I'm a sales first guy. That's what I love. I love communication. I love language. The very first thing I'm going to ask somebody like this is great. So, by the way, let's talk about this real quick. This is what we're going to call an agreement frame. So I'm going to say something like this. Jackie's the person who asked this question. Jackie, I completely understand where you're coming from. I talk to a lot of people who have a similar belief to that they believe that the market may crash. Step one of an objection handler is not to tell someone they're wrong. And if I see that over and over and over again in sales, and someone would say this, and you say, well, let me tell you why that's not true. Well, I don't know about you, Jordan, but I don't particularly like people telling me I'm wrong. Maybe I need to grow up a little bit. I'm 50 years old. Maybe I need to, be a little bit more mature. But at the end of the day, I don't think anybody likes to make a statement that they believe is true and someone go, no, you're wrong. So agree with them. Step one. Step two, you want to isolate this a little bit. And, so, hey, Jackie, out of curiosity, where are you getting your information from that makes you believe that the housing market is going to crash? They're going to give you all kinds of different data. Oh, I saw it on Facebook. I read it on, on Google. I saw it on the news. Any of those things are possibilities that might come up. But here's the reality. And there's a great video by Dave Ramsey, and I don't care if you like, love, or hate Dave Ramsey. He's a famous guy, and people listen to him. So he goes into there and he talks about this very simple concept: supply and demand. So again, I was talking about that a few minutes ago. We have more people wanting to buy a house right now than we actually have houses for sale, believe it or not, in most markets. And until we get to that 6-month inventory, supply and demand is, well, it'd still be a factor there, but supply and demand is what's driving the market. So here's some delusion or misinterpretation of what's happening in the market right now. So what's happening is, hey, Brian, I see all these price reductions. That means the market's declining. No, those were just overpriced houses. Because why? Because an agent went and sat and talked to the guy and said, hey, Jordan, what would you like to list your house for? 500. Well, you realize it's only worth 420. I know, I want to list it for 500. And an agent goes, great, and list it for 500. Then we claim there's a declining market because we have sellers who are trying to get significantly more than their house is worth because their neighbor listed their house for 400 and they got 450 last year. Well, that's great. That was in 2021. That's not realistic. So step two is to find out where they're getting their information from, and then use some third-party sources. So it would be okay if I sent you a video from Dave Ramsey just explaining what's really going on in the market today? And then that's also why you need to know your stats. So yes, we're seeing price reductions, but here's the reality. And I looked this up a month ago, so it's not going to be accurate today. But do you realize, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, that in March, our average sales price in my market was $393, and in August, the average sales price was $405? Well, no, I didn't realize that. Well, here's what we're keep seeing. Until the demand is lower than the supply, we are going to continue to have prices rise. And by the way, the experts are saying that we're expecting appreciation of somewhere between 3 and 5% per year over the next 5 years. Not what I'm saying, but what the experts are saying. So let me ask you this. Are you willing to take the risk that the market is going to crash, or would you like to consider purchasing now? And let me just say this. If you can find a house that fits your needs, if you can find a payment that's comfortable, those two things together, in my opinion, it's always better to own. So for example, I owned a house in 2007 that I bought. The market crashed. Guess what? I had to wait a couple of years to sell it, but I still made money on that house. Even buying a house the year before the market crashed. Why? Because real estate always increases in value, and ultimately you have two choices, or you could say three. you can live in the street. Most of us don't want to do that. You can rent a house or you can own a home. Which of these makes more sense for you if we can find a house that's affordable? So that was a big, long way to get there. But I think we need to be able to talk about that and why the experts are saying that the market's going to continue to increase.
The other piece I'd add onto that, Brian, is finding out what the motivation of the buyer is. If they're looking to
Absolutely.
buy, discover why they're wanting to buy and use that in the conversation. So as you're offering these objections, as you're giving these stats, offering advice, sharing this information about what the experts are saying, tie it back into your motivation to buy. Is that really based on the market? Is that really based on what you feel housing prices are going to be? Or is that motivation today and driving you to look at buying a house today? Because if you're a lead, you came through somewhere because today you said, I want to look at buying a home. Not, I want to look at buying a home in 6 months because I think the housing market will be different in 6 months. You said today, I want to buy a home. Whether you realize that or not, you filled it out today.
Well, and here's the thing. I don't know about you, but this is not my skill set. And what I mean by that is I don't necessarily know when to buy something because it's going to be worth more or less. I wish I did, but because, boy, if I knew that, I'd be very wealthy and wouldn't be talking to y'all today. But for example, a friend of mine introduced me to Bitcoin in 2013. When I say introduced, we were just talking about it. I really wish I would have spent $10,000 on Bitcoin in 2013. I think it was about $200 a coin back then. So I don't even know what it's worth today, but I'm pretty sure it's worth significantly more. And, but if you also look, Bitcoin has done this. It's gone up and down, up and down. If you're in the speculation business, that's one thing. But let me ask you this, Mr. Buyer. Are you looking to buy a house as an investment, or are you looking to buy a house as a place to raise your family and do that? Find out where the people are coming from, because one of the things I think a lot of people get stuck on is it has to be perfect situation, it has to meet all of my needs, and it has to be a great investment. Well, if you're looking for that, that does happen every once in a while. But if you were to talk to 100 people who owned houses, 98 of them would tell you that yes, they were happy and their house ended up being a good investment, but ultimately they just needed a place to live and raise their family and have enjoyment. Which is more important to you? Because basically you're probably not going to get both. But the beauty of owning a house, just like owning stock is general, is the market always goes up. So if you're in this short term, then yeah, you better be careful, because if you're looking to buy a house and sell it in 2 years, it might not be the best time to buy. That being said, if you're planning on raising your family and staying there for 5 to 10 years, the market will appreciate. It is not going to go down. So,
Absolutely. One thing you mentioned, the Dave Ramsey video a few
mhm.
times, content you're offering, educational materials that you're offering. What does that look like? Because we also talked about we have to nurture leads now. This was something 2020, 2021 wasn't happening. If someone said 6 months, I'll buy, you called them in 6 months. What are you doing now? What does your system look like to build value, to nurture, to help educate people that are in your funnel?
Yeah, so part of this looks like this. Hey, Jordan, it's Brian, just reaching out. You made an inquiry about 6 months ago, and I'm just following up with people who've made inquiries in the past. And out of curiosity, do you have anything? Do you have any idea what's going on in the local real estate market? You're going to get yes, no, I don't know, don't care, no, tell me more. So
Right.
remember, a lot of people say this: I get sick of calling people because I don't know what to talk about. Well, set yourself up to talk about the market. Why? Because people are interested in that. They like the market. I mean, it's really housing's a very interesting thing because almost everybody is interested in it, which is kind of rare if you think about a product in the world. There are plenty of products people couldn't care about. Housing seems to be one that people are all interested in, mostly because all of us have to have a place to live. So follow up with people with actual statistics, show them what's going on, show them the trends, share things. We use KCM, Keeping Current Matters, and KCM has great graphs and charts and stuff that you can send to people. As far as video, when we talk about that Dave Ramsey video, here's something I'm not a fan of. I saw this when this video came out. Everybody and their dog posted it on their Facebook page. Okay, there's nothing particularly wrong with that, but you're making the assumption your client's going to look at it. So have a conversation with them. It looks like this. Hey, by the way, Jordan, are you familiar with Dave Ramsey? Yeah. Well, Do you like him? No, he's an idiot. Okay, I'm not going to send that guy the video. Or no, he's an amazing guy. I love him. We follow all those things. Hey, I got a video from Dave Ramsey about the market. I'm just going to shoot you a quick copy of it. You can watch it. And when we talk next month, or by the way, in between, feel free to reach out. Here's another thing for your past clients is reaching out with CMAs. Hey, by the way, I just did a quick CMA. I want to shoot it over to you. Why am I doing that? This is a personal story. My house is on the market. It's actually pending right now. And this is almost embarrassing, but I didn't realize how much my house was worth. So it's just kind of an interesting thing because you don't look at your own house, but when you go to sell it, you go to look at it. And my house doubled in value from 2014 to 20 whatever it is 2022. Sorry. So in 8 years, my house doubled in value. And that's a true story. I can show you what I paid for it. I can show you what it's under contract for. It doubled in value. That made my head hurt, to be honest. So we've got to be reaching out to these people and showing them that. So, for example, if I get a zBuyer lead, now I know we're going to give them an approximate AVM that comes in with that. But at the end of the day, hey, do you have any idea what your house is worth, Jordan? No, I really don't know what my house is worth. Why don't I do this before we have one of our investors come over? Why don't I come over, take a look at your house, and basically do what we call comparative market analysis, give you an idea what it's worth. I don't know if you want to sell or not, but it sure is a heck of a lot easier to make a decision once you have that information in front of you as far as the actual value. So remember this, 62% of people work with the first agent they meet in person, not the first agent they talk to, but the first agent they meet in person. So when you're getting a lead source like zBuyer, then you want to do, your number one goal is to get in front of these people as quickly as possible. So when you get incoming leads, and I will also say this, speak to their call to action. If someone fills out a form that says, I want a cash offer on my house, don't call them up and ask them if they want a CMA. That's not what they asked for. If somebody calls, did you get a CMA? Don't call them up and say, hey, I got a cash offer on your house. They're like, oh, what are you talking about? I want to do a refi. That's why I want to know the value of my house. Understand who you're talking to. And I'll say this, 15% of people move every year. So I want you to think, one of the beauties, one of the things that I love about zBuyer is the quantity of leads that I get. And what I mean by that is if 15% of people are going to move every year, if I get 100 leads, 15 of those are moving. Now, you need a bigger number for that to work out over time, but think about that. All the people who have a big database, or all the people who are using something like zBuyer, 15% of those people are going to move this year. And that's an amazing, important number, even in this market. So, there's still plenty of opportunity out there on both the selling side and the buying side.
One thing I love that you said is you're reaching out to them, you're offering value. You're not introducing, I'm Mr. Realtor, I'm here to come sell your property. When can we go ahead and get the sign in the yard? Not asking if they want to sell it, not asking if they want a cash offer, because they already told us they want a cash offer. They want to see what that looks like. You're giving them resources to help them make a decision. You're not tying them down to something. You're not locking them in. You're not trying to get them to say, yes, I am interested in selling. I don't know if I want a cash offer or list. You're just saying, hey, this is what you might have been interested in. Let me give you some resources to help you make a decision and know what your home's worth.
Yeah. And again, remember this, every agent I've ever talked to, and there's going to be an exception out there, maybe there's someone who's an exception watching this webinar, has told me this: I am better in person than on the phone. I've never had an agent tell me, you know what, I'm just so much better on the phone. So the objective of your scripts is to get in front of somebody and get in front of them with a reason. Hey, Jordan, why don't you just let me come over and spend 15 minutes at your house so I can get a really good idea what that house is worth? I mean, I can do a CMA or comparative market analysis without that, but if I were to actually be able to see your house, I give you a really good idea of what it's worth, and then you can use that information to figure out how you want to move forward, whether you want to stay, whether you want to refi, whether you want to leave, whatever the case may be. Information is always better, don't you agree? And so now I'm in front of that person. And by the way, I've done this with zBuyer leads for many years. You bring somebody over there and you say, hey, Bob, your house is worth $400,000. I've got a buyer, cash buyer, just like you said. Now, let me just tell you the bad news. Our cash buyers buy usually about 70 cents on the dollar. So even though your house is worth 400, my investor will probably pay you around 280. How do you feel about that? Most of the time they're like, no, you just told me my house is worth 400. Great. This is a really good opportunity for you, because I'm going to guess in 99% of states, if not 100% of states, you're required to disclose that you're a real estate agent. So, hey, remember on the phone I mentioned I was a real estate agent. Why don't I show you what I can do to help you get your house sold for full market? full market value to take us about 15 minutes. Is that something that we can do today? Yeah, great. Most people, I've never had anyone tell me no. You're there, you're sitting with them, you're talking with them, you've built some rapport, you're good in person, like most real estate agents are. That's why do this, and it's a really good opportunity to do that. And again, Jordan said this at the beginning. There's still going to be a lot of people who move every year because people's life changes constantly. I mean, I moved 3 years ago and I moved 7 years before that. And I moved, everybody moves. It's just the reality of it, of the life that we live. It's not 1955 where you stay in a house for 40 years anymore.
Absolutely. The housing market doesn't determine if a divorce is going to happen or not. It doesn't determine if there's going to be another baby coming. Doesn't determine if someone's going to get a job offer in another state. So that it's one factor that's independent of the housing market.
Yeah. And I can tell you this, if you don't take anything else away from this webinar, there's a couple of things you need to do. You need to have a consistent lead flow as a real estate agent. Again, that's one of the reasons I use zBuyer. I know that I'm going to get a consistent flow of leads every single month. And then the other thing I have to do is nurture those leads. And I feel like sometimes we try and turn this into rocket science. We're not splitting the atom, guys. We talk to people, we set appointments, we write contracts. That's what we do. That's our job over and over and over again. But it has to be consistently and it has to be nurturing. And I love that Jordan pointed this out. It's about bringing value. I can't just call you up once a month and go, hey, did you decide to buy yet? Did you decide to sell yet? That's not going to be an effective way to do it. I have to build relationships and bring value. And that's literally talking to them about what's going on in the market. And that's probably our best value that we have. Hey, have you noticed what's happening with interest rates? Have you noticed what's happening with the number of houses? Have you noticed the price reductions? It's a great time to help a buyer who couldn't buy a house. Some interesting contrast I think a lot of people are missing right now is, it was really everyone focused on the buyers focused on the interest rate in 2021, right? Hey, I can get a 3% interest rate. But here's what they forgot. We get convenient amnesia as is that, oh, I needed $50,000 in cash above my down payment and closing costs. Oh, I had to pay 10, 15, 20% over the appraised value. Everyone's forgotten that they were doing that. But that's what happened on 90% of deals. Well, there was a whole bunch of people, by the way, and these are some of the leads that are in your database, is that they couldn't buy because they didn't have $50,000 in cash to cover an appraisal gap. Therefore, they literally couldn't buy a house sometimes. Guess what? All those people on the flip side now can get much easier financing. And I'm not saying in better terms, but much easier to get financing. And also, heck, they can get the seller to pay seller concessions and pay their closing costs for them now. It's a reversal. There are advantages for buyers in this market, and I think sometimes we've forgotten that. The advantage for sellers, I don't know about you, I actually had a seller move out of their house for the weekend and live in a hotel because so many buyers came and looked at their house. That's not a fun way to sell your house. That's a train wreck. I literally had to move out of my house for 3 days. So there's some advantages for sellers too. If we focus on the things that were better in 2021, all we're going to do is beat that objection into people's heads. Focus on what's great about this market. And there's great things for buyers and great things for sellers in this market.
Absolutely. Brian, I think we're getting close to the end of our time here. Does anyone have any questions though, before we wrap up?
All right. Well, while we'll give people an opportunity to throw that in there, I want to say a couple of things. Again, longtime user, Jordan and I were talking about this in the green room. I think I've been with zBuyer since 2015. Phenomenal product, great return on investment. And we have something in the chat. Please use that link that's going to get you 20% off of your first month. That's a great deal. And you guys don't necessarily even have long-term contracts, do you, Jordan?
No, month to month.
So try it, 20% off. Try it. It's a fabulous product. Do you happen to have the scripts that you use? So Leona, I hope I pronounced your name correct. I don't necessarily have those all written down. Jordan, do you guys have some scripts someplace that we could do? I've got them all in my brain. I don't necessarily have them written down. So
amazing question, Leona. I'm dropping a link in the chat right now. This is something we launched recently. It's called the Resource Center, and this is made from agents using us nationwide. So people working with us that are converting our leads. You're going to find scripts, some example drip campaigns they're building, examples of content material that they're using, that they're sending. So look through there. You'll be able to find tons of information.
absolutely. And somebody asked, could we please send the Wow, my brain stopped functioning there. Can we send a copy of the recording? That being said, if you look, there is in the link a thing to the YouTube channel. This will be posted on the LabCoats YouTube channel. You can watch it as many times as you want. And, those of you who liked my script, and if it's different than some of the zBuyers, I'm pretty sure we've got a lot of crossover there. You can watch it 5, 6, 7 times and record it and do that. It's funny, we were talking about scripts this morning. One of the things, those of you who have never learned scripts, one of the things that you can do, get a script, record it in your own voice, and this is going to, be painful for most of us, but it is effective. Listen to it. Drive around in your car, listen to yourself saying those scripts, and I promise they will get embedded in there significantly quicker than just trying to read them. So I hope that makes sense for everybody. We just, one more question. I'm in Fort Myers, and we just had a hurricane. Any ideas on how to move forward? Empathy. And that's really the only thing I can say. I've never worked in a market that had a true disaster like a hurricane or a flood or anything like that, but do your best to give back and be empathetic of people, find ways to solve their problems. And I know that's not the easiest answer, but I don't have any of that personal experience. But all I can say is people are going to work with some of those people who just were they cared about them. They understood there's problems, and God bless the people of Fort Myers. That's a real challenge that they went through a couple weeks ago, and hopefully bring as much value as you can, and that doesn't change. And I'll also say this: give, give, give. It's amazing how that comes back tenfold. So God bless you for being in that market. I hope it works out, and I hope it gets back to normal as quickly as possible. Jordan, any final thoughts?
I'd like to wrap it up with the market's changing. It doesn't mean it's crashing. Like you said, normalizing, a term everyone needs to have in their vocabulary. Focus on that. Focus on bringing value, building relationships. Like you said, that's the first part of the job. Build relationships, build value, build trust, and that's where it'll come from. Everything else will come with that. So focus on that. If you're not already using us, like Brian said, there's a link that Jake's been posting in there. It looked like Leona said that there was a problem with the link, possibly. If you are having a problem with the link and it's not showing the 20% discount, give us a call. I posted the number directly in the chat there. So call us at zBuyer. Let us know that you're coming from LabCoat and we'll get it taken care of.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for being here today. Hopefully this was helpful. And I will say this. I want each and every one of you who took time to be here today. Here's my mindset. This is the first time in 2 years we've had an opportunity to differentiate ourselves. Like, honestly, the best ability in the last 2 years was availability. Well, that's not saying anything about being a professional real estate agent. Learn your market stats, be able to have those conversations, get some great lead sources, and nurture, nurture, nurture. That's the agents who's going to crush it in 2023. So, Jordan, thank you so much for being here today and allowing me to chat with you. Again, this replay will be on LabCoats. We'll make sure that link is working. With that phone number's in there. We'll make sure all that's updated on the Facebook page. Thank you again, LabCoatAgents. Thank you, zBuyer. And you guys all have an amazing day.